Good morning. We are going to let people start joining this really exciting webinar that we have for you today. And in the meantime, start thinking about your questions because a lot of you out there know about Diamondback Terrapins. You're going to learn about some great work that is being done by Team Terrapin, which is based out of Florida and led by Tabitha Hootman, who I'll introduce in just a minute. So, in the meantime, sit back, grab a water, grab a Coca-Cola, though I'm not endorsing them, and we're going to let more into our webinar so that all can enjoy from the beginning. A few things that I do want to say is that in the chat, Kirsten Cardwell will be providing resources and links and other prompts for you. And then as a webinar, we also have a Q&A feature. So the Q&A feature is where you ask your questions so that Tabitha may answer them at the end of the presentation. So please use the Q&A feature for questions. If you happen to put them in the chat, you'll probably get a prompt from Kirsten requesting that you put it into the Q&A feature. Okay, so it is 11:01 a.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. If you're just joining in, my name is Jordan Gray. I'm the External Relations Manager with the Turtle Survival Alliance, here to bring you another Turtle Survival Alliance webinar experience. And this time we're going to be focusing on the beloved Diamondback Terrapin, a species that is not only loved here in the United States where it's native to, but also has fans all around the world. So let's talk about Turtle Survival Alliance for a minute. You probably got here through social media or through our e-newsletter or some other form of communication. You're probably here because you know about Turtle Survival Alliance, but I just want to reiterate once again who TSA is and what we're about. So, Turtle Survival Alliance has a vision of a planet where turtles thrive in the wild and are respected and protected by all humans. We have a mission to to protect and restore wild populations of turtles through science-based conservation, global leadership, and local stewardship. And these are based on a core set of values: stewardship, passion and optimism, community empowerment, excellence through innovation, respect, and a commitment to zero turtle extinctions. We partner with local conservation leaders all around the world to deliver our strategic science-based initiatives. And we engage more than 100 partners around the world, making this a very, very comprehensive global program to save more than 115 species and subspecies of turtle and tortoise. Our mission, however, is realized through the efforts of extraordinary people with a passion for turtles. And today you're going to get to meet and learn from one of those extraordinary people. So I'm going to introduce to you Tabitha Hootman. Tabitha is the project leader of Team Terrapin, a collaborative initiative of the Turtle Survival Alliance, Jacksonville University, Florida State Parks, and the Jacksonville Zoo and Botanical Gardens. Tabitha leads one of the most effective volunteer-driven Diamondback Terrapin conservation programs in the Southeast. Under her guidance, Team Terrapin protects Carolina Diamondback Terrapins and maybe more, but we'll learn about that later, on the barrier islands of Northeast Florida by pairing rigorous field science with community engagement. Trained volunteers work alongside professionals to locate and document terrapin crawls, GPS mark nests, monitor incubation and hatching success, track hatchling dispersal, and contribute to long-term data that directly informs conservation management. Today, Tabitha will take us inside this hands-on conservation model, sharing how volunteer science is generating meaningful data, delivering on-the-ground protection, and shaping the future of one of our most iconic coastal turtles. We're excited to have her here with us today. She's a great part of our Turtle Survival Alliance team, a personal friend, and somebody who is just as driven as anybody you'll meet in the world. So, Tabitha, let's get ready to talk about Team Terrapin. So, the first question I have for Tabitha is about the Diamondback Terrapin. Let's talk about this incredible turtle. So, the Diamondback Terrapin is one of the United States' most iconic turtles. Can you start by telling us about the species, why it's so unique, and where Team Terrapin focuses its work?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Um, so everybody thinks their species that they work with is unique. Uh, Fortunately, I can actually back mine up. The Diamondback Terrapin is the only brackish water species, not just in North America, but the entire world. So they are the only animal that lives in the salt marshes, coastal habitats, mangroves, throughout North America, throughout the eastern part of North America. So they also have the longest range of any turtle. So they range from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, all the way down around the east coast of Florida, around to the middle of Texas. Florida is super special because we have 5 of the 7 subspecies, so we house about 20% of terrapins here. These guys are known for their patterns and their shapes, and I actually have a couple to show you and show you how beautiful they are. So this is Smiley. It's a little male, and you can see, I don't know if you can see how beautiful his shell is. And he is absolutely gorgeous, and this is his brother Nugget, and you can see the difference. These guys come in a vast array of colors and more. Their spots on their heads are as individual as our fingerprints or a tiger stripes. But they are absolutely incredible, beautiful species. They are sexually dimorphic, as you can see in this slide. So the females are at least, I would say, half, double the size of the male. They are large, so they can come up and lay eggs. They have to deal with a lot of uh, predation and other factors coming up to lay eggs. The males generally don't come out of the water so much, but they are one of the species that show sexual dimorphism.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tabby. Appreciate you telling us about this turtle. I mean, this is, I would say, by far the turtle in the world with the greatest variation, especially amongst its 7 subspecies. Like the turtles on the west coast of Florida have uh, orange spots on the center of the scutes of their shells and this kind of pinkish white or light gray skin. Whereas in the turtles that you just showed, Carolina Diamondback Terrapins can have that strong concentric or diamond-like pattern, or have dark shells. They might have dots, stripes, speckles. They're just absolutely incredible. And, they all have, I think, what we can say is that distinctive beak. So
Yeah.
many of them have this whitish beak. Some of them even sport mustaches. That's a common trait in Diamondback terrapins is on that distinct whitish beak to also have mustaches. Now, unlike in most humans, the mustache can be on either males or females. So that's
Correct.
not one way to differentiate. But I know in your population that you study, that's something that you see quite a bit of.
Yes. And actually, I don't know if were you able to see on these guys? The darker one does sport a mustache. Let's see. Can y'all see that at all? Where the light one does not have a mustache and the dark one does. So we do see that. And um, I apologize. I don't think I answered one part of your question. We actually work in Northeast Florida. We our work ranges from Florida Georgia border, where Northeast Florida, the top Northeast quarter, Nassau County, Duval County, St. Johns County. So we have a pretty good area where we actually concentrate our efforts in working to save these species.
All right, thanks. And for anybody who works with turtles, I mean, you're naming a couple counties, and that might seem, globally small, but I know that these efforts are extraordinary. Um, so, over the past decade, states have invested more resources into studying diamondback terrapins. In 2024, the Center for Biological Diversity filed a petition to list this species under the Endangered Species Act. What would you say are the biggest threats terrapins face, and how does research like yours help inform management decisions?
The I see one of the biggest threats that they face is humans. Um, we have taken the largest predator role for several reasons. One, we poach them, we use them for the pet trade. These are one of the highest sought after turtles for the pet trade. We also have destroyed countless acres of habitat for these guys that they usually thrive in for and changed it from coastal salt marshes to development. Crab traps, as you see in this picture, sorry, as you see in this picture, that's a huge area where we lose a lot. The females go in, that's part of their diet. The blue crabs, they go in, they think it's a smorgasbord, they drown. Road mortality, we have several areas throughout their range where they have to cross very busy high-speed roads to go to their nesting area. So we lose it in road mortality. Um, we're also beginning to see other areas in climate change and habitat loss just from erosion, sea level rise, as you can see in this picture. This beach used to go out a lot more, and you can see in the top right corner where the water is encroaching on it. So in this area of our study, and high tides, especially when you start getting into our storm months, our late summer, early fall, there's no place on this side of our site that allows for terrapins to nest. And then, of course, you have raccoons, armadillos, crows, things like that. You have boat strikes that kill them. Um, I use raccoons as also a human-made threat, generally because we've taken out all of their apex predators and we have allowed raccoons to live and prosper in an area that they would normally not be able to be in. So we're seeing increased incidents of predation where before they would not be able to habitat or live out there in that habitat. So now then we're seeing them able to live, able to thrive out there because of our garbage, of our fishermen leaving containers that collect fresh water for them to stay and for them to be able to reproduce and teach their young. So,
Yeah, and one of the things, Tabby, I mean, we saw that photo of the crab trap, and crabbing is common in every state in which the terrapins live.
mhm.
What is how many terrapins can fit in one crab trap? I think that's a question that a lot of people have, And I think the answer would be quite surprising.
Yeah, the highest that I am aware of, and we've talked about this, that I have seen documented is 96 in one crab trap. 96 females. And females are about the size of a dinner plate. So if that gives you an idea of how large these crab traps are and how much of a toll they're taking on these populations.
Yeah, and like you're saying, road mortality too. So you have all of these different threats working against this one species. You name numerous of the threats. I mean, you could have creeks right alongside a road where the terrapins are getting nailed by crab pots in the creeks. And then when the females come up to cross the road during the breeding season, that presents a whole nother obstacle and cause of decline for the species, not to mention everything else that you said. So this is a species that is really hard hit, but when given the chance, and this is where programs like yours really come in, when given the chance, these animals can rebound, they can thrive. I mean, we
Yes.
know that the Diamondback Terrapin was hunted to the brink of extinction in the late 1800s and early 1900s,
Hmm.
and their populations heavily rebounded, but now are to the point where we're looking at, wait, do these animals now have so many new threats against them where they need to be protected by federal law?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, thankful for prohibition. They did get that second chance, or we probably wouldn't be working with them today, to be honest.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
you know, and we're hoping to, through our efforts, to give them another break because they unfortunately are getting it from all sides.
Right. But to look at all of these impacts, we have Team Terrapin. And so it's rapidly grown, right, into one of the most effective volunteer-driven research and conservation programs for the species. Your participation has increased dramatically just over the past few years.
Yes.
So, with that being said, what advantages does a volunteer-based model bring to terrapin monitoring? What strategies have proven the most effective for training and empowering people, especially with diverse backgrounds and experience levels? And what factors do you think have driven this growth in the program while expanding the project's scope? And I know that's a lot all in one, but I think it's everything that you base your work on. So,
It is. It is. And if I miss one, please feel free to come to remind me. So when we took over the partnership with the state for this project, we decided to use what we consider a three-pronged approach. Most volunteer scientists will use either undergraduate research or what we call participatory science or just partnerships. Previously, before we came on, they used just partnerships. In 2016, they decided to start participatory science, and that's what they focused on with their previous partner. When we came on and we decided to use all of it, we took all the undergraduates and graduates we could get. We took all the citizen science. If you have just an interest, we're happy to teach you, train you. We take you through several classes. We have people out in the field who are seasoned and who have had several years experience with this. And we use our partnership. So like Jacksonville University, the Jacksonville Zoo and Botanical Gardens, we use all of these factors to create a team. So we have scientists on the team, and then we have people who are in IT or put in cabinets. And we put those people together, and we're all out there. The good thing is we're all out there for a common goal to do conservation work, to do something we love, to give back. So we take them. We are working on a semi-isolated island, so we work with the state to get them trained for kayak certification so we can go out to our site. And then we work with Turtle Survival Alliance and their population studies so we can train them how to handle a turtle properly, how to um, take all the morphometrics. So you take all their measurements and their weights, how to give them pit tags, which are passive integrative transponders. So it's like a microchip for your cat or dog. So we can then monitor that turtle each time we catch it. And how to hard mark their shell. So we give them a proper number. So then each time we catch a turtle, we can monitor their health, monitor if anything's going on with them. And then we start, and this team, we've grown it from when I first took over, we had 6 to 10 volunteers. At this point, we have over 90. We've also added additional sites to us, which is St. Johns County. We work with the state parks there now. And Flagler College has come on board with us, and we work with them. But we take that, and those people partnered that don't have experience, partnered with people who do, the scientists who know what to look for, get training from April 1st through September 30th. We have a team out in the field every single day. So instead of how it used to be when you only have 6 people, we're able to cover 6 months pretty much continually, weather permitting, to be able to identify nest, craws, turtles, issues, anything like that. So it has made a huge number increase in what we're able to find, what we're able to detect, observations that otherwise we would never be able to know about if we didn't have this type of group out there, and their dedication, and they are just an amazing group of people.
I mean, that's just incredible going from about 10 volunteers in just a few years to more than 90. And just so everybody knows, I mean, that is really driven by the dedication of Tabitha and her team to bring other people on. Again, like this this effort and these efforts, whether it's in Northeast Florida or other places in the country, are really driven by passionate people. I mean, people who are, we'll call them dyed-in-the-wool turtle enthusiasts and conservationists who that they spend all of their free time even, working to help these animals. Now, I do want to give a shout out here with Jacksonville Zoo and Botanical Gardens. Can you tell us about the internship program and how Jacksonville Zoo has been really instrumental in incorporating that into this program?
Yes, they have been incredible. Uh, we have, first of all, we have several members of their staff that volunteer with us on a regular basis and have volunteered with us for at least 4 years. They are very supportive in those efforts. Uh, 3 years ago now, they provided us a large grant that enabled us to fund an intern for the summer. So our intern is from April through September, and they come in and they are one of our um, consistent people out in the field. They're out in the field 5 days a week. So with that, they give us continuity between training with volunteers, continuity with communication that helps. And we couldn't do it without their support. Their support has been instrumental in having that person out there. That person, um, they take the brunt of the work because all of us, myself included, have jobs and other commitments that we have that we can't be in the field as much as we want. So they are able to bridge that gap with us, and the zoo has been incredible partnership with us.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Tabby. And I mean, for the interns and the volunteers, you already talked about training. I know that you're going to like talking about this part because it is something that is so fundamental to this effort. So, searching for terrapins under the hot Florida sun, I mean, that's no small task, right? You, so can you walk us through your field methodology and how you train the volunteers to successfully locate these nests?
Yes. Thankfully we don't get everything all at once that we have to train them on. So before season starts, they do get kayak safety certified. So we know they're competent in swimming and handling a kayak and so on and so forth. And as I mentioned, we take them to the field study or to the population studies with our other field projects in Florida. So they get practice handling a turtle because where we can get average 100, 200 turtles easy in a weekend at a Springs event, out on the island, we might get 42 turtles that entire 6 months, adult females. So it's easier to train them on that. So that's their first bit of training. Then we don't stop there. As I mentioned, we pair the people who are coming on board or who are novice with scientists or with people who have several years experience. And then we teach them, we take them out in the beginning of the summer. You're looking for terrapin crawls, which is their footprints, their path coming up out of the water to nest and back to the water. This slide is a perfect example. I don't know if everybody can see the crawl here. It sticks out to me super easy. I might have been doing this a little long. But we teach them how to find them because these aren't like sea turtle crawls. These aren't anything that you're going to find super easily, way down the beach. You usually have a full year of training people before they can identify what I consider easy crawls. They are tiny, tiny little pinpoints that they come up. The direction and how we call it smiley faces, how the direction is indicates whether they're coming up or down. So we teach people that. And here you can see this is a textbook nest, and I promise you this does not happen, but once every like 10 years. We had a terrapin come up. We teach them which direction is up, which direction is down, and then you can see right by that little puff of grass is the nest. And that's what we look for. And it looks very easy to identify on here, but it takes a lot. There's another nest. It takes quite a bit to figure it out, and you can see her scratch marks. We teach them how to identify scratch marks. So we teach them how to do these, to identify these crawls. And these crawls, like I said, are not the easiest thing. The nest isn't even the easiest thing. Then once they do, we confirm that it's an actual nest, and we teach them how to do that. Careful so you don't puncture any of the eggs or do anything like that. And just a note, we usually don't uncover it this much. We do the first time a volunteer is out there to show them what they're looking at and how close it is, because these nests are only at most 6 inches deep. We've had them where they're literally right under the surface of the sand. So we confirm the nest. Once we can confirm it's an actual nest, we cover it back up and we teach them all the morphometrics or all the data to take for that nest. And I mentioned climate change earlier. One of the things we're seeing is increased temperatures. So now then we put, we call it a hobo. It's a temperature data logger next to the nest. So then we can get temperatures where that nest is incubating through the entire time of incubating. And then we take data on that. And when we deployed it, the serial numbers, all that information. So we teach them how to do that, how to mark the nest, how to identify it. So then we monitor it then every day from the time the nest is laid, and we identify it until fate of the nest, whether that be predation, hatching, inundation, washout, whatever the case may be. We monitor that nest for the rest of the season. So As the season shifts and you start moving in, because they have approximately a 60-day incubation period, as the season shifts to hatching, you have a period in June, July, August where you're having females still coming up laying and nest hatching. So then we teach them how to identify a hatched nest, how to identify hatchling crawls, how the all the data to take of an unidentified nest that had hatched. And we also teach them predation. So we teach them how to identify predators' footprints so they can track predators and know which predator was there by their footprints. They know which predator is there by the way the nest is dug. Each predator has its kind of signature move. So we teach them that, and we teach them all the data to take for predation events as well.
It's incredible the amount of work that you all put in to train these volunteers. And I think you can tell us about, you know, the results of that work put in to train the volunteers and how good they're becoming because I mean Team Terrapin has documented a sharp increase in nest detections. I do want to stress the term detections from a historical average of around 275 to now more than 850 nests per season. Um, what does this suggest about the survey effort, terrapin behavior, or the habitat conditions?
So I think it it gives credit to how much training is going in, um, because I am probably the one with the most years experience out there in the field doing them. I'm a little old, so I'm probably the one with the most years experience. But before, like this picture, they lay everywhere, everywhere. They lay on the beach, they lay in the grass, they lay under trees, they lay anywhere you can think of, these guys will lay. And teaching new volunteers and teaching people and taking your time throughout an entire year, sometimes 2 years, to show how to identify this and taking that time, I think speaks volumes when you're seeing these increases because now then it's not just me out there and it's not just the park biologist and it's not just these, it's anybody out there who has been out there and is trained that can I've got young adults that are still in high school that come out that we have been able to train to also identify nests. So I think it's a huge testament to taking that time and training them and really showing them what to look for. And I think that that thorough training has resulted in this. I don't necessarily, we have, I know in the past year, seen a drop because we have lost so much of the beach access. They go into thick, thick vegetation to lay, and it's been more difficult to identify them. We can't, some of it, we can't even get to the bottom of the vegetation where we know they are. But they're still finding where the crawls are coming up. We're still finding lots of information saying they're still nesting in there. We just might not be able to locate that nest at that time. But it's a huge effort on these guys' parts. They spend hours in the hot broiling sun finding these nests and committed to carrying it through.
Yeah, I think you brought it all, you know, together perfectly. You have more people looking for the nests. You have well-trained people. You know, you think of the phrase, you know, practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. And that's where training the volunteers so that you have consistent monitoring across all the different types of habitats and uniform in the way in which you train really has caused this ability to be able to look for, detect nests. So, um, one of the things that you mentioned was that, this is like a 6 month long effort, April to the end of September, October 1st. That's quite a long effort. And because you're in Northeast Florida, you have the nesting season and the hatching season basically merging together as one. And that's why you have such a long duration, with the eggs taking, 2 to 3 months, depending on the temperature of the nest to hatch. Um, can you tell us more about the effort during what we'll call the hatching season? What does it entail, and what type of habitats are particularly important for the hatchlings once they've actually come out of the nest?
So hatching season is quite fun. I think it's our funnest part for all the volunteers. Because we do get to see these beautiful little guys. So we teach them when we take them out during hatching season. As I mentioned, we teach them how to identify a hatched nest. We teach them how to identify um, their crawls, because a hatchling crawls looks a lot like one of our racers on the beach, or 6 line racer. It's like a lizard. Um, it looks very close to that, so we have to train them the difference in those type of crawls. Um, and it's as intense. We're going through some really harsh habitats sometimes. You're going through cactus because it doesn't bother them. By the time the hatchlings start coming out, there is a gross amount of fire ants on the beach, which is one of the hatchlings' main predators. So, and unfortunately ours too, they don't love us so much. So we have to train them, what to look for. If we see a congregation of fire ants, there might be a nest there. You might want to check it out. There might be some kids still living in that. Um, and we identify for the hatchlings, like how many eggs were in a nest, how deep the nest was. Um, we take some data on the hatchlings. We obviously can't give them a pit tag or mark their shell. They're super, super soft when they come out, and they're super small. They're between the size of a nickel and the size of a quarter. And so we take their measurements. So we measure all of them and we take their weight, and then we take, because since we have measured them and already kind of gone through that phase of when they come out of the nest, we take them to a safe spot where there are no fire ants, where they can eventually, that's where they pretty much go to. When we're out there, we have to be super careful because, as I said, nests are laid everywhere, and these guys look for cover when they come out. So they can be under rack lines, they can be under vegetation, they can be under boards, they can be right out in the open. They can be anywhere. And we are finding that they will come out of the nest, rebury. So we have to be careful of that as well, to try to identify where these guys are burying and make sure we aren't imposing any negative threats on them. One fun fact is these guys are not like sea turtles. We share a lot of same habitat and stuff, but they aren't like sea turtles. They come out one at a time. So if you see a crawl from one, chances are you still have 5, 6 in the nest. So yeah, and then we all love them, so we might take a million pictures of them.
Yeah, and a quick thing to add, Tabby, is that, so I'm glad you brought up sea turtles or marine turtles, is that with marine turtles, when they hatch, it's a beeline for the open water of the estuary or ocean or sea. But with terrapins, these hatchlings typically don't choose to go right out into that open water. Can you tell us just a little bit more about
Yes.
the ecology of these hatchlings in those first, their early weeks, months, and even years of life?
Yes. Well, I could tell you very little. These are still considered the lost years. We are beginning to get some data back from them throughout their range. One of the things that we're noticing, for example, we have a grad student now that this is what she's working on. We are noticing that throughout their range is different on how how their ecology is, how they behavior is, what they do when they come out of the nest. For example, for ours, you will see a small percentage go straight out to the water, but generally the majority of them will go up and look for cover. And they will continue to look for cover till they get near where fresh water collects. And they typically stay, from what we're seeing, near a freshwater area where there's a small amount of freshwater collection, and they can bury in and kind of hunker down there for the winter. Um, but these guys utilize the entire backside of the marsh. We find them near those areas. We find them in the vegetation. Anywhere from the rack line up, we find hatchlings that have either just emerged or have hunkered down. And we are currently still working on figuring out what they do. From there, um, there have been studies throughout their range to figure out the first 5 years till they start reaching sexual maturity. Unfortunately, that is still a pretty gray area. I know we are finding for ours that each of them is individual. They kind of make their own choices on what they want to do, where they want to be. But this is our first year tracking the hatchlings, so I would be hesitant to say any definitive this is what they do from there till sexual maturity for our populations.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Tabby. So, staying on the subject of hatchlings and nests, so climate change is an increasing concern, especially with nest temperatures approaching potentially lethal thresholds. And real quick shout out to Sean Duty and George Heinrich and others who are starting this really cool study across numerous species of aquatic and semi-aquatic turtle to see how climate change may be affecting nest temperature and hatchling success and the sexes of those animals. Um, how are you studying this issue? What impacts have you observed so far? And do you anticipate temperature-related effects becoming a population level concern in northern Florida?
Yeah, so we we started noticing 3 years ago now, temperature effects. We started noticing with our hatchlings, and once again, this would not have been noted if we didn't have the volunteer base that we do and the incredible people we have on our team. But we started noticing we saw it in very small numbers 4 years ago now, where the nesting period was being shortened. So instead of 60 days, we're seeing them hatch at 55 and so on and so forth. But we also noticed some of them were hatching and coming out of the egg with this large unabsorbed yolk sac. So it looked like it's basically a preemie. So they were, some of them, the smallest one the size of a dime that came out. And so we decided to start looking at incubation temperatures, which is why we now deploy the hobo at the same nest depth right next to the nest to try to get that information to let us know what we're looking at for nest up or for nesting temperatures. There's been one study done for negative thresholds, and it was in our northern populations. We understand there's difference in latitudes and gradients for what that threshold will be for that species. Ours is obviously a little more than our northern counterparts. But we're seeing our nest, we're seeing a good portion. To give you an idea, our first year we put the hobos out, we put them in 17 nests, and 14 out of the 17 nests incubated at over 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So these are very detrimental to our hatchling success. We're seeing nests fully terminate where they can't develop past a certain stage once that temperature is hit. We're also seeing more and more the amount has increased that we're seeing with unabsorbed yolk sacs. We're also seeing with that, because we're having hotter, warmer seasons, that doesn't kill off the grass. So as I mentioned about the vegetation earlier, you're seeing habitat where they're having a harder time getting in and getting under to lay their nest. And with that, we are also seeing an increase with vegetation predation, where the roots of these grasses that you see in this slide will go into the nest and suck all of the nutrients out of the eggs and therefore kill the eggs. So we have started the hobo, the temperature data logger nesting. We are also looking at this point at stage versus temperature, if there are stages that are more sensitive to this. Unfortunately, I think the Diamondback Terrapins are the canary in the coal mine for this event we're seeing. I have been talking with my sea turtle counterparts, and they saw for the first time this past season a hatchling with an unabsorbed yolk sac as well in sea turtle nest. So they are now beginning to see it as well 4 years later. So I do think this is going to be something that we see for reptiles, period, that nest in these summer months, in these hot months, especially when there's no shade. But I think this is going to be not just a population level concern in North Florida. I think this is eventually going to be a systemic issue for reptiles.
Yeah, it's scary to think about because these are ectothermic animals in which the temperature that the eggs incubate determines the sex, which is called temperature sex determination. But you also, like you were talking about, you have these lethal thresholds. I know I myself have seen eggs where the roots of the plants have they penetrate through the eggshell, and you open up the egg and the roots are all inside the egg. They've sucked out the nutrients of the egg. There's a lot of issues going on, and this is super important work that you're doing. And I really kind of stress to other turtle programs and terrapin programs to look at these issues as well, because like Tabitha was saying, the terrapin might be the canary in the coal mine, but this might affect so many other species out there, and it's something that should, I would say, regularly be implemented into studies in turtle populations. So I'm going to say thank you, Tabby, for being able to contribute to this database on the emerging threat of climate change. You talked a little bit about it, and I also know that you have a small friend that you're going to show us. But so I'll ask the question. So Team Terrapin is using tools like radio telemetry, satellite telemetry now, and genomic approaches. Can you tell us about these projects and how they help inform habitat management or policy making decisions?
Yes. So I'm gonna start with genomic approaches because that's what we did first with the state 4 or 5 years ago. Um, we started with that, collected a lot of DNA material for the state, to not only look at population status and where we're lying, which we are IUCN vulnerable right now. The state has them. From this data, the state now does not allow any take from the wild because our populations are vulnerable and decreasing at an alarming rate. So they went from being allowed to take 2 a day from the wild to 0 from the wild. You cannot own a Diamondback Terrapin without a permit. There's no breeding of them, nothing in the state of Florida anymore to protect these guys. They also, for recreational crab traps, used our data because they targeted the female. The crab traps target the females just because that's part of their diet. And the recreational crab traps now have excluder devices, a requirement for excluder devices and to be registered to help save our populations. We've also been able to take that same genomic data and share it with TSA, where we have one of the strongest genomic maps for our terrapins. And so if there is a confiscation from FWC, let's say, we are able to, if that animal is eligible for release and reintroduction into the wild, we are able to get that animal within 8 miles of its original habitat. So that is huge for us, to be able to use those tools to do that. We do plan on using it for other projects in the future. We have a list, a large list of things we want to see come on board. But we will be working more with genetics in the future with that. For the satellite tagging, which is the girl you see here, we work with USGS. We currently have 6 tags out. We'll be putting 4 more out next season to identify, because once they leave us, we don't really know where they go, what happens. So we are able to identify now areas they are going, how far they are moving, habitats they are utilizing other than our nesting beach. So we are able to get so much more data, and we are now beginning to go out to these other areas to see if it's places where we can do population studies and so on and so forth. It'll also help with management decisions for protecting areas that they, for example, we were able, because of this data, they just wanted to open up commercial shrimping in one of the small creeks that we see a lot of the terrapins go into. And because of this data, we were able to stop the shrimping industry from going into there, which would have had a negative impact on their population. So this is helping form management decisions in that aspect as well. So for radio telemetry, I had mentioned that we have a grad student, Shannon McNeil, who is also with Jacksonville Zoo, and she is doing radio telemetry. And this is, I don't know if you can see it, one of her little guys. And there is, it's kind of dark. Can you see the transmitter right here? So we put this on it, and it goes out, and she goes out much as she can 5 days a week, weather permitting, to get these guys and track where they are and what they're doing, so we have more information to fill in the lost years and to help us. For example, our site will now be hosting, we'll be starting a restoration project, a replenishment and restoration for our site. When we do, we need to know, especially because we've lost so much of our nesting habitat and so much of the beach, that we need to make sure when we bring that heavy equipment in that we aren't taking out 4 generations of terrapins that are hiding in there and hunkering down until they can get big enough and feel comfortable to go out into the waters and so on and so forth. So this helps guide how to build that restoration project, and we are hoping that it will set standards moving forward in their habitat when they do replenishment and restoration.
This is so cool, Tabby. I have to say, I mean, especially being able to use different tools to be able to look at terrapin life history and ecology, because as you know, and for those watching, being able to save turtles is not just about adults. It's not just about putting hatchlings out into the wild. It's addressing all of their life stages. It's about being able to mitigate impacts to the habitats that the turtles use throughout their life. And without this knowledge, we can't effectively protect turtle populations. So again, this is really neat. And that being said, what lessons from Team Terrapin's model could be applied to regions that currently lack volunteer-based terrapin or other turtle species monitoring programs? And looking ahead, what are the biggest opportunities for expanding Team Terrapin to other areas of Florida?
So expanding is one of those things that you got to be careful because, we already have scientists working with terrapins throughout Florida, and you never want to step on anybody's toes or anything like that. Fortunately, we have an incredible group of people in Florida that works with terrapins. We have now partnered with Ben Atkinson at Flagler College, and they are helping us expand the range into uh, St. Johns County. We are also looking at bringing on a few others. I have been talking with FWC and some of the other colleges and so on and so forth who want to start bringing this on. Um, I personally think it's an incredible model. I mean, we've shown in the numbers, we've shown in the results what this looks like to bring numbers and to really get good in-depth results from your research. But you have to be dedicated. It can't be one of those, oh, I'll do it here and there. You have to be dedicated. You have to hit those three prongs because just undergraduates themselves aren't going to be able to fill all the void. You need people who are retiree, people who have availability during the week while students are in school. So I I'm happy to work with anybody doing it. I think the training is the most intense part, but the most critical part of bringing this model in. Um, and yeah, I think anybody can do it. If you have an interest, we generally, because we know at our site what we're getting, we are happy to bring you out to train you and to show you so then you can take this to your site and start doing it there and emulating what we do. We have worked with the state where now then if you work through a state park, it is the same information throughout the state to get all of the data so we compare it throughout the state parks and get a better idea of what's going on. But so we are trying to get it in Florida now where it is consistent throughout Florida to get the same information to really look at our different regions and what's going on and how they differ.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly when you were talking about commitment. I know how much effort you personally put into this. The coordination, coordinating, I mean, 90 some volunteers, the coordinating proper data gathering, being able to then disseminate the results and work with the different agencies and other stakeholders in this. So it really does come down to, all the way back to our to the very beginning of our discussion of extraordinary people. It takes
Mhm.
a person or multiple people for each project to be able to sustain it, and it has to be that you love what you're doing. You are passionate about it, and that's what I want to stress to everybody out there. And Tabby, I think already very much did is we can help these turtles if we can find, and that might be you who's watching right now, people who say, I'm going to dedicate my free time, my work time, I'm going to get my friends and family and community involved to being able to help these animals because that's the only way that we are able to save turtle populations is by creating this basically global network of extraordinary people who are catalysts for change within their communities and regions. So finally, you already kind of said it, but for those inspired by this work, how can individuals or organizations or potential partners get involved or support Team Terrapin's efforts?
There's a multi-level approach to this. And I know it's crass, but we always need funds. We always need grants and money. So, unfortunately, science isn't cheap. So if it's an organization that wants to support us financially, we're always looking for grants. We really need to. We are working with Jacksonville University now and bringing on a rehab and an additional research program for our terrapins. And we need additional interns for it that we're looking for sponsorship for and grants for at this juncture. Um, if you are an organization that gives back for will pay you for some organizations will pay for volunteering. So think about that and promote us in your workplace to be one of those that they can volunteer at to be a part of the company's morale thing. Um, they can always anybody can always reach out to me. I am readily available. We are starting actually for our team, bringing in volunteers will start January for our new volunteer drive for the 2026 season. So if you are interested, please email me. You might not hear from me immediately right away, but January we will be pushing our drive and getting everybody organized, getting all the paperwork done, so on and so forth for that. We have there's an Amazon wish list for stuff we need. We always need equipment, field equipment. The salt marsh is never nice to our equipment. It tends to wear out quickly between the salt and the sand and everything else. So any of that helps. There's multiple levels. If anybody's local and good at fundraising efforts, we could always use hands in our outreach events and fundraising and those kind of opportunities. There's a myriad of levels you can get involved. It doesn't just have to be field research. Um, but yeah, we will take just about anybody and put you to work.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tabby. All right, so that ends the discussion between Tabitha and I, and there are a lot of questions. I might not be able to get to all of them because we have about 10 minutes, 15 minutes now, so I might have to pick and choose here. So you did talk about this to a degree, but I have a question from Mick Corey up in Massachusetts. She asks, is there a push for banning certain types of crab traps in the southern states to prevent mortalities, such as they have done in Massachusetts? I know
Um,
George Heinrich would like that question and Joe Butler as well.
yes. It depends on whose side you're looking at it from. We are always looking to ban certain types of crab traps. Um, we're also pushing for stricter regulations for them. Um, Unfortunately, we have not been able to hit the commercial crabbers yet, but we are pushing. That's part of, you know, our goal. And some of the data we're collecting is to try to strengthen our cause to get these guys more protected from something that's a simple fix, to be honest.
Yeah, it's what seems like a simple fix, but not so simple because you're working with a very large industry, right?
Right.
So like Joe and George have been working for more than 20 years
Hmm.
on trying to have regulations passed that require excluder devices on both commercial and recreational. And as you said, now recreational traps require the excluders. Just for those of you who might not know, an excluder device is put on the outside or sometimes the inside of the funnel so that it allows crabs to pass through, but in most cases, not certain size terrapins.
Right.
Yes, it does not exclude all size classes of terrapins, but what it at least can do is reduce the amount of terrapins that enter the traps. And then there's also certain types of crab traps that tend to catch more terrapins. So looking at that, but it's a long and hard fought issue. You have so many different stakeholders involved, and then you also have to look at it from the side of those who crabbing is that is their way of life, their bread and butter. How would this impact their catch? But
Exactly.
let's look at it. The same thing was asked decades ago about sea turtles, and we managed we as a collective conservation community managed to put turtle exclusion devices on shrimping vessels and other types of vessels for marine turtles. So it does take a lot of work, but those types of regulations can happen. Um, Next, next, where I want to get to is so your project doesn't really focus on this, but a great question from Ashley Saul is: are there any roadway management structures in place in Northeast Florida to help prevent road mortality? And I know I saw in the chat that Steve Mars from Animex International um, put talked a little bit about the exclusion devices that they're testing out on the Downing Musgrove Causeway out to Jekyll Island. So in Northeast Florida, is there any type of work being done there?
Um, Thankfully, knock on wood, in Northeast Florida, where we work, we do not experience a lot of road mortality. So we don't have to worry about that so much. Um, Thankfully, ours, if you're looking for a vehicular type for us, is probably more the boat propellers than vehicles for us. So thankfully, we do not have, that's not one of our issues that we're fighting against. I know just north of us that that they do have that, and they have started different um, treatments, if you will, to try to alleviate some of the room mortality. But thankfully, we do not have to worry about that where we are right now.
All right. Next, and this is important because so we're talking about Diamondback Terrapins in this, and you have a large volunteer corps. But there's in some areas, site sensitivity can be an issue, and certainly for other species. So the a question that came in was, how do you deal with including volunteers at these sites while also protecting the vulnerability of the sites? Knowing that there are high risks that come with more people knowing about the nesting sites and potentially exposing these animals to poaching or other human-induced impacts?
Yes, that's a great question. And one that's kind of a leap of faith, right? There's always that chance that you're going to expose that site or give information that you don't want to. During our orientation, during our training, before they are even told exactly where the sites are, they go through and we go through multiple times about how critical it is to keep this quiet. They sign a form saying that they will shut off all GPS location on their phone, that if there is a picture that somebody can go, I know exactly where that is, that gives a telltale sign of our habitat, they are not allowed to use that. They can post it in our group chats, they can post it on our private things, but they are not allowed to post it for public. We have been very kind of demanding about them being very secretive about it. And the amazing part about it is once the team gets out there and they experience their first Diamondback Terrapin and they instantly fall in love, all of a sudden they're as fiercely protective as we are. So they don't want to tell. So they're very protective over that. We've been very fortunate with that. I know there's always going to be that fear, but we have to trust in our volunteers and hope they do the right thing for all the forms they sign, for all the training we give them.
Yeah, to add to that, Tabby, the other great thing about the way this program is because you're out there throughout the nesting and hatching season, 6 months of the year, much of the active season of the species is that you all have a constant presence out there.
Mhm.
And just having that presence is a large deterrent unto itself. And it really does, it can come down to species, having 90 plus people out for a volunteer study for, say, North American wood turtles might not be preferable, right? But Diamondback terrapins, we see programs throughout their range that are really, community programs or volunteer driven
Mhm.
to help these species because, as we talked about earlier, there's so many threats against this species. And the more that we can engage the community in protecting this animal, the better it is for the greater
Yeah,
populations in general.
correct. Yes.
Um, Let me see what other question I can answer in the time allotted. And if not, if I don't get to your question, um, I know Kirsten put Tabitha's email in the chat. We also flashed it up on the screen. Please feel free to email Tabitha and ask her
Yes.
questions about all this. Um, here's a good one is, all right, so we talked about beach erosion and all that. There's fewer areas for the terrapins to nest, or at least optimal areas. So Hai Nguyen asked, do you relocate any of the nests?
We do not. Um, the state of Florida does not allow that at this juncture. Um, so we just are, the only thing we can do at this point is monitor the nest. Um, we're, if it gets to a point where we're seeing such detriment to the population, we might be able to go back to the state and get an exception. But at this point, they are not allowing us to relocate nest.
Okay, thanks, Tabby. Um, This is one from Mary Ting. Mary Ting is highly involved in Diamondback Terrapins and other things up in New York. Is the grasses that are penetrating the eggs, are these mainly native grasses or are you seeing invasives as well? And I say this because there's a big difference between uh, the uh, the species of native grasses in Northeast Florida compared to where I know Mary is, where it's predominantly all Phragmites now.
Yeah, our sites, we're fortunate. Most all of our sites have very, very little invasive flora. So it is all native grasses that are penetrating our eggs and terminating them.
Okay. Just typing in an answer here, real quick. And this one was, does Team Terrapin uh, sell any merchandise with their logo at it as a way to support? Christine is saying it's such a great logo for such an amazing species, and would be wonderful to support the team through this. So
We have our
again,
drink beer safe turtles right now. But that is our next step. Once again, if anybody wants to volunteer for that, we are happy to bring people on that can help.
um, so, all right. So, another question, and then we're gonna have to wrap up. Uh, so you've talked about pit tag. I'm actually gonna wrap two questions together that I saw here. So, um, you have pit tagging and you have hard marking. So the insertion of a passive integrated transponder. Can you one tell everybody what exactly the purpose of a pit tag is, like what it does and what it does not do? And then also hard marking. Um, what is hard marking? What's the systematics behind it? I think that will give a good people a good way to know, why it's done, how it's done, and the information it provides.
Yes. So we'll start with hard marking because that was the original. Um, Before pit tags were developed. Hard marking, we use what's called the marginal scutes, so the outside scutes on the outer rim of the shell, on the top of the shell, and we have a number system for that. So we use a different variation, like a 10 and 20 to make number 30. A different variation to give each turtle a unique number. So then anytime it comes up, we are able to see that and monitor that turtle's health. So we take a little triangular file. The marginal scutes is much like your fingernails. So we just put a small notch in there with a triangular file, and that gives us an identifiable number to be able to then follow that turtle. Um, when we recapture it, we can look and see if it's grown, if it's had any injuries, if it has any kind of deformities developed, if it has tumors developed, if it's healthy, if it's emaciated, anything like that. Um, so that's the first thing. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, we have a lot of boats in our channels and so on and so forth. So we do get a bit of propeller damage, and sometimes some of those scutes that we have marked will get damaged. So when they came out with pit tags, which is it's a little microchip, it's about the size of a piece of rice. It's the same thing that you use for your cats or dogs when you go to the vet to identify them if they get lost. It's a 15-digit number that we use that is specific to that turtle. We inject it into the turtle. Um, and then we are able to then have two identifiers to 100% confirm that this turtle is that, just in the event that the transponder fails after a year or two, we still have the hard mark. If there's any damage to the hard mark, we have the transponder. These are passive for a reason. They aren't active, so they aren't like a satellite tag that they're constantly sending signals. It is something we have to collect and go over with a scanner to be able to access that. So we aren't collecting data for where they go or anything like that. It is just an identifier for that turtle. It doesn't give us any information of where it's been, anything like that. All it does is give us information for who that turtle is so we can monitor the health and well-being of that turtle, and by that its environment.
Okay, thank you, Tabby. Heck, do you mind if I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
All right. So, Florida. Five of the seven subspecies live in Florida. And with many species, both flora and fauna, we are seeing northward migrations. Well, one of those, and Bruce Cathcart, sorry, just a little tongue twist there, um, asked this question. So mangroves are increasing
Mm-hmm.
in their range with a northward expansion. Have you started to see in Northeast Florida any evidence of this? Or from other researchers in Florida, have you seen how terrapins are adapting, especially with regard to nesting from sandy marsh bordered shorelines to mangrove bordered shorelines?
So where I'm at, I'm kind of still where we aren't getting the next subspecies yet. We did just bring on St. Johns County, which we are reporting more and more mangroves. Um, we have, as of yet, not seen a migration northward of the terrapins. I cannot speak for any of the other researchers if they have or not. To my knowledge, they have not seen migration northwards. Um, but it is something we're on the lookout for, and that's part of our genomics is we want to see, especially when we start moving south and you get those blurred lines where you get intergrades, are we seeing more of the southern species coming up into those northern now? So that's one of the things we want to look at with genetics eventually. But yeah, at this juncture where our sites are and where our primary sites are, we have not seen migration, and we, knock on wood, don't have many mangroves yet. It's one or two, maybe a handful throughout where we are at in our research. Um, but yeah, it's something we're on the lookout for sure.
All right, thank you, Tabby. All right, so with that last question, I would like to thank everyone for joining in on today's webinar. This has been recorded, so there will be a recording posted to our Turtle Survival Alliance YouTube channel, and all of you who attended or registered will receive an email with the link to that recording. Again, if you have any more questions or we didn't get to answer your question, please feel free to reach out directly to Tabitha, or you can also email info@turtlesurvival.org so that that can be passed on to anybody who might have an answer to that question for you. We're really, really excited to be able to bring you yet another webinar experience. And we hope that this webinar has been able to inspire you about the work being done for this really iconic species, a species that is integral with the history of the United States of America, and one that I know Tabby would love your support with. So, in this time of year, again, Turtle Survival Alliance is a 501c3 nonprofit. If you want to support this and other work like it, please do so. We have a really, really great matching gift. So any dollars raised up to $60,000 will be matched by very generous donors that help support, again, this and other projects for turtles and tortoises around the world. And keep a lookout because Tabitha, especially, loves to put on Drink Beer Save Turtles events in Northeast Florida. By the way, Drink Beer Save Turtles is a Turtle Survival Alliance initiative to be able to partner with breweries, tap rooms, and the like to bring turtle enthusiasts, beer enthusiasts, and any other enthusiasts together to be able to celebrate turtles and raise funds because all of the funds from a Drink Beer Save Turtles event in which Tabitha puts on numerous in North Florida goes directly into the conservation initiatives. So, all that being said, thank you very much for joining. We hope you have a great rest of the year, and we can't wait to see you all in the new year and bring to you another Turtle Survival Alliance webinar experience. So, thank you, Tabitha, very much for all your work and all the great information that you've provided us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for letting me tell you about Team Terrapin.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.